you know that the Scourge is still active? Not only is it active, but it was confirmed that they fully control Icecrown, and the Flashworks are still constantly creating and building up new undead. All the engines are up to speed. Bolvar told us that there must always be a Lich King, but this is the first time in history where they're left to their own devices. There is no Lich King. We were told that the local warlords are vying for power and a new leader is on the rise. In the last Titan, we are going to revamp and almost certainly enlarge Northrend, and it will be a decade by then that the Scourge has been festering and empowering themselves with no Lich King to control them. The most interesting thing though is that the Titans are returning, and based on everything we know, it is likely that the Icecrown Citadel was built on top of a Titan prison. Kel'Thuzad was recently hinted to still potentially exist, and Denatrius was left on a cliffhanger, and we know he and his Dreadlords are the true creators of the Lich King and the Scourge. So, what is going on with the Scourge? Who is going to be the new leader, and what will Scourge 2.0 look like?
So, as the Lich King took control over the Scourge, you can take control over the legendary champion Alice the Wanderer completely free in the new raid update by simply logging in after you download the game with my link below. I will be covering these new champions on my new channel, Doran's Arena. However, Alice's adventure is upon us with 5 brand new legendaries from your favorite childhood stories, like the Queen of Hearts that you can fight in a new event, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter that you can fuse, and Alice that you will get completely free by just logging in for 7 days. Time is of the essence though, as the event is of course time limited. If you're just starting out, I got awesome guides for you on my second channel, Doran's Arena, that I just opened, that I would really appreciate if you could check out, as together with these free champions that I wish I got when I started and my bonus links, you will avoid any mistakes you might make. You can advance much quicker from campaigns to dungeons to clan boss and arena, and you'll get into endless content where it gets super fun. Best of all, Raid is cross-platform, so you don't just have to play it on your phone, you can play it anywhere. So click my link in the description or scan the QR code and you will get insane bonuses, a legendary hero, 2 epic ones for free only with my link. You'll get Talgar on sign up, you'll get Uga on level 15, so click my link in the description or scan the QR code, and also check out my channel, Doran's Arena.
The Scourge is one of the original villain factions, going back all the way to Warcraft 3, and really one of the best villains we've had so far. Much like the Scarlets, for example, they had their ups and downs, but mostly downs since Wrath. Back in Wrath, the Scourge was a superpower. Then after the defeat of Arthas, Bolvar took over, and despite the brain gone, the Scourge was still insanely powerful and nearly impossible to defeat, so someone needed to keep them in check, but they were mostly contained to just Northrend with a few outposts. However, then Shadowlands came. The crown was broken and the Scourge was taken over by the Jailer, and he launched attacks on us with it. This significantly weakened it, but unbeknownst to many, it didn't actually destroy it. We had gotten updates to the status of the Scourge post Shadowlands, and it is still a massive threat. And guess what? At the end of this Worlds of Saga, we are going to this Northrend, and they had quite a bit of time to regenerate. The unfortunate fact is that the Shadowlands really messed up the entire storyline of Arthas and the Scourge. They essentially all turned them into puppets of Zobal and just copy-paste them on their axis, and it turned out that the entire point of the Icecrown Citadel was to siphon the essence of the World Soul so that the Jailer can destroy the universe. However, based on the recent information of Titan Machinery, this might all change, but we'll get to that in a bit. The big thing though is that since the return of Chris Metzen, Blizzard has been trying to fix this lore mess of the Shadowlands. They even admitted it was bad. I think the Scourge is really one of the main victims of this storyline. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that we actually got official updates not only in the books but also in the game for the Scourge post Shadowlands. While the Jailer did briefly control as a new Lich King of sorts, after we had defeated him, the Scourge for the first time ever turned into complete chaos. This is what Bolvar actually wanted to avoid back in that iconic cinematic. Do you realize that this is the first time in history of Azeroth that the Scourge had no single mind to control it, no ruler? First, it was Ner'zhul, then Arthas. After that, Bolvar took over, and when Bolvar's control was destroyed, it was the Jailer. This all happened in a matter of a minute, so they all took over. After Jailer's defeat though, they were left to their own devices, and this can't be good in any way because, as you may remember, what Bolvar told us, there must always be a Lich King because the mindless undead are too powerful. Well, guess what happened? A primal civil war and a battle of the minds that remained. While a lot of the Scourge was mindless, many of the generals remained, the undead blood elves, the liches, and the like. We've learned that since then, the local warlords took control and started battling each other. If you may remember, we've actually had one of these local vicious warlords back at the end of the Shadowlands. An undead blood elf took control over the local Scourge near Quatalas, and he launched an invasion that we had to repel with the help of the Shadowlands. However, if this guy was able to master a force that was strong enough to invade a kingdom as powerful as Quatalas, or at least feel bold enough to try, think about what is going on in Northrend where the bulk of their forces are. The Scourge has been long weakened, if not fully destroyed in the Eastern Kingdoms, but in Northrend we never had a significant purge campaign and they had only been getting stronger. Actually, this is not my speculation. Following Shadowlands around the time of Dragonflight, we got the book Exploring Azeroth Northrend when they told us this exact same thing. Magni had reported that there had been a significant amount of Scourge activity still in Northrend post Shadowlands. This is around the time of the time skip before Dragonflight, so keep in mind there has been a bit more time since then. As we've learned, almost the entirety of Icecrown is still under firm undead control, and especially the Icecrown Citadel, which is the peak of their activity. We've also learned that the Fleshworks is still going on full steam, or half steam in this case. Blizzard has confirmed in the book that the undead are still building new undead to their machines at a much slower rate than back in Wrath, but this isn't because they don't have the capabilities or they can't build more undead and because they're weakened, but because they don't have any purpose that binds them to create more undead. Previously, the Lich King was pushing them full steam, and after that for a decade, Bolvar essentially kept them in check, didn't want to make the Scourge even stronger, he wanted to contain it. However, remember, since the defeat of the Jailer with the time skip and everything, and by the time we get to Northrend in the Last Titan, it will be at least a decade, a full-on decade of no Lich King and the Scourge being left to their own devices. Who knows what could happen next. Now, I did previously mention that they're in the midst of a constant civil war and the warlords are vying for power, but don't think that this is going to actually destroy them. I mean, this is the undead Scourge we're talking about. Undead don't get destroyed easily, and if they do get destroyed, they come back quite easily, or they can combine them into different monsters or resurrect them in other ways. Now, with this information, you would imagine that we might run into various Scourge factions when we get to Northrend. Some might even join us like the Forsaken, and while that is likely, there has actually been new information at the start of the saga that implies a few more things we could be seeing. So Northrend is going to be the center of the finale of the World Soul Saga, the focus of this entire expansion. This means that just like Midnight, this won't be just a model revamp, but very likely we're getting an enlarged continent as well with new areas. Interesting enough, Dragonflight and the saga added a few new lore locations to Northrend that we never saw ourselves when we were back there during Wrath. One of these locations is the base of Irenicron that is apparently somewhere close to the Icecrown Citadel beneath it, and it seems to be a large underground base. Irenicron, as he told us, is waiting for the Titans, and the next time we see him will be in Northrend. Crazy things will be happening at Midnight with the final battle of the Light and the Void and a big worldwide conspiracy that will be uncovered, as Chris Metzen told us. The confirmed return of Illidan and Veralakis Sargeras, however, most importantly out of all, is that the Titans will be coming to Azeroth in person. They will be coming to Northrend out of all the places. This means that something crazy is going to be happening in Northrend. I've talked about this in my previous video on the channel that you can check out, but seriously, just check out the lore we know. Apparently, the Jailer instructed Arthas to build a Forge of Souls, whose hidden purpose was to extract the World Soul, as we had seen at the end of Shadowlands in that cinematic. It's almost impossible that Arthas managed to reach that deep down, as we are actually now getting to the Chamber of Azeroth in Khazakar. It's much deeper than the Icecrown Citadel, so it's very likely that the Icecrown Citadel was built on top of Titan machinery, on top of a Titan prison. The famous worldwide conspiracy that Blizzard announced, which is almost certainly the Titan prison Azeroth is in. It's no longer even a speculation that Azeroth is in prison, because we know a part of the mechanism is in Khazakar. It is known as the World Core, and Azeroth herself tried to resist this chamber as the Titans built it. However, Northrend is really the main Titan area, very likely the center of this mechanism that we will uncover. And check this out, the core area is under the Icecrown Citadel. This means we will have to deal with the Scourge to be able to even reach it. Now, here come a few really interesting scenarios on what could be happening. While Blizzard could get the Titans themselves to delete the Scourge with the move of a finger, I don't think they want to do that for the nostalgia reasons, so it's likely that the Scourge are going to get new leaders. One of the possibilities is that Kel'Thuzad Kel'Thuzad may be returning. I know it sounds crazy, but he was apparently killed back in Shadowlands for good, but this guy has been killed for good a dozen times before. In the War Within, we got a Kirin Tor questline just a few months back, where he created an alternate version of himself in a pocket dimension that seems sentient, so there is a possibility that he could break free, as after all, Kel'Thuzad was literally the leader of the Scourge until Altus took control, and then he was his second in command. The other possibility, the more likely one, is the famous theory that I've been talking about for a few years at this point, and this is that Denatrius is going to come and take over. Remember the end of Shadowlands? It ended on a giant cliffhanger of what is to come, and we know something crazy is coming to Northrend. Denatrius was playing like 5 different sides, and most of those 200 IQ things people ascribe to the Jailer is actually the real work of Denatrius. Denatrius created the Natrazim that did everything from corrupting Sargeras to creating the Lich King. Denatrius is the true creator of the Lich King and not Zoal. In fact, Denatrius is really the true leader of the Scourge. Shadowlands ended by him getting freed from the Blade and is currently missing in action on some part of a plan, and this is a guy that has been plotting for thousands and thousands of years. It also ended with him making fun of the Jailer, saying he could have chosen another way. It's almost certain he knew the Jailer would lose and that he would come back. Another big practical argument is that people love Denatrius as he was one of the bright sides of the mess that was the Shadowlands. The thing is though, it is entirely possible that Denatrius could swoop in with his Dreadlords into Northrend and take control of the Scourge of the Icecrown Citadel. Previously, this would be a crazy proposition. I mean, why would a villain of his caliber, of his cosmological caliber, come down to Northrend to take care of some half-destroyed undead horde? Like, what is the ultimate plan? To take over with the undead Scourge? However, it's not the undead horde. There is something everyone wants here. We know the Titans are coming here, Iridikron is here. It's likely that Azeroth's real prison is in Northrend, and the Forge of Souls is still digging into it and potentially into the Titan facilities. Denatrius could use the Scourge as his entry point to deter and delay us until he can start doing his thing. It could actually be a big part of the Last Titan, because why else would they leave Denatrius on that cliffhanger? However, as I said, the big practical reason is that the Scourge is super iconic and most people want to see them. This is the first thing you think about when you think about Northrend. They have been slowly building in the map and giving us hints that they're building undead and are left to their own devices. We actually have no idea what can arise now that no one is actually leading them. We know for a fact that most of our forces, the Horde and the Alliance, had left Northrend, so they could be getting much more powerful as far as we know, and there is still time until the Last Titan. So the Scourge is definitely going to cause more trouble. We might discover an undead horde unlike any we had ever seen, especially if Kel'Thuzad or Denatrius takes over. Thank you for watching. Check out my video on Xal'atath being an actual ethereal by clicking on the screen, and check out my new raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.